Today I want to talk about rebellion, what the root causes of it are, and what kind of the underlying thought of the person who rebels against Yahovah is. I think we can understand Yahovah's perspective on what it is to have a rebellious child in what he instructs us to do if we have rebellious children. So in Deuteronomy 21 verse 18 it says, "When a man has a wayward and rebellious son who is not listening to the voice of his father, as would be the case with us, or the voice of his mother, and who when they have disciplined him does not listen to them, then his father and his mother shall take hold of him and bring him out to the elders of his city, to the gate of his city, and shall say to the elders of his city, this son of ours is wayward and rebellious. He is not listening to our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard." And of course, the reason that they would be bringing him out to the judges, to the elders, is for him to be stoned. He receives the death penalty, as we will, if we are wayward and rebellious, and we are brought before the judge, God, and we receive the death penalty of the second death, the death of the soul. It's interesting that it says, after they have disciplined him, Yahovah will seek to discipline wayward and rebellious children. But if they still won't hear the voice of their father after that, then it's the death penalty. You'll see there the word marah for rebellious. That is one of the two words for rebel, or rebel rather. It's the verb. The other word that you'll see is a similar word. They're not actually related to each other in any way. Marah and marad with a D on the end. This is the word marah, and it says here to be contentious, to be rebellious, be refractory, be disobedient, and it tells us here that can be towards a human parent or towards Yahovah. The other word marad, verb here, to rebel, to revolt, or to be rebellious. And again, we can do this with Yahovah. We can also do it with human authorities. We might think that we know better than the people that Yahovah has put in place. And perhaps we do, but that's not the point. The point is that the human authority has been instituted by Elohim, by God. We see that in Daniel chapter 4. We're told that Nebuchadnezzar was put in place by Yahovah. And Nebuchadnezzar really wasn't a good guy. He wasn't someone that Yahovah would describe as good, and yet we're told that Yahovah put him in place. And we don't know the reasons that Yahovah does it. We shouldn't try to guess at those reasons. We shouldn't try to second guess Yahovah. But we should not rebel against those human authorities. We see an example of this rebellion in Genesis 14 verse 4. They served Kedoah la Omer, and in the 13th year they rebelled, and that's that other word that we see used there, marad. So in both cases, both of those words are used of rebelling of Yehovah, but we have concrete examples in relationships that we can understand where the word is used as well. Marah with the rebellious son, and Marad when they rebelled against Kedaloma. Deuteronomy 9 verse 7 says, "Remember, do not forget how you provoked to wrath Yehovah your Elohim in the wilderness, from the day that you came out of the land of Mitzrayim until you came to this place. You have been rebellious," word marah there, "against Yehovah." And the underlying principle which is at play when someone rebels against Yehovah is that they think that they know better than Yehovah. They think they know how to handle the situation better than Yehovah. If they know that his word says a certain thing and they decide to do something else, then what must be underlying that is thinking that they know better than Yehovah in that situation, thinking that his word doesn't apply to them, doesn't apply universally, for example. They may not actively say that they know better than Yehovah. Most people wouldn't. But when we do things that are contrary to his word, that is what we are saying to Yehovah. What you say about the situation is not correct. I'm going to go with what I think. And that is the cause of rebellion. And it's useful for us to acknowledge that. So if we decide to do something that is outside of the word, we should acknowledge that we are saying that we know better than Yehovah in that situation. That's not a good place to be. We see in Proverbs, "Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear Yehovah and turn away from evil." So this is the opposite of the rebellious mindset. The rebel thinks that they are wise in their own eyes, that they have some kind of insight on the situation that Yehovah doesn't have, or he couldn't possibly want me to do what he instructs me to in this situation. I have got a better way of going about it. We read in Deuteronomy 29 about those who bless themselves in their own heart, even though they hear the curses that come from disobeying the law. They bless themselves in their own heart and say, "I shall have peace, though I walk after the drunkenness, the stubbornness rather, of my own heart," to add drunkenness to thirst. And that's exactly the rebel mindset. And Israel were told to get such people out of their midst. And Yehovah said that he would lay his wrath upon such people. So that's not a mindset that we want to emulate, that we want to incorporate. We, of course, want to be conformed to the image of Yeshua, who said, "If you be willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will be done, but yours." That's the other side of things. Yeshua didn't say, "I'm wise in my own eyes." I don't think that being crucified is really a good way forward. He just trusted the Father that he would lead him in what is right. An example of something in which people sometimes think that they know better than Yehovah in. And before we go to this verse, it's important to note that not every instance of this happening is an instance of rebellion, but often it is rebellion. It's trying to take what Yehovah has said and to tweak it just a little bit in line with what is more appealing to that person. In Deuteronomy 22 verse 12 it says, "Make tassels on the four corners of the garment with which you cover yourself." From this, we can either take that it's saying, cover your garment in tassels, on the four corners, could mean everywhere on the garment, or it is literally saying on the four corners of the garment you need tzitzit, so you need 4 tzitzit. But what people will often do is they decide, I'm not going to make 4, I'm going to make 2. Maybe they're trying to be a bit quirky, a bit different, but it's taking Yehovah's word, what it says, and tweaking it. As I say, it's not every case that this happens in, that it's a case of rebellion. I'm not trying to judge people's hearts here. I'm just saying this is an example of something in which rebellion could be the underlying cause. The other one is Sukkot. It says, "You shall observe it as a feast to Yehovah for 7 days in the year, a law forever in your generations. Observe it in the 7th month. Dwell in booths for 7 days, or dwell in Sukkot for 7 days. All who are native Israelites dwell in booths." And of course, if we have been reborn according to the word, then each of us is a native-born Israelite. We have been reborn as Israel. What people like to do with Sukkot is they say, well, we're going to do something, but actually we're not going to do it for 7 days. That seems like it would, eat into people's lives. What we're going to do is we'll do it for 2 days. We'll do it over the weekend, and then it's not a problem for everyone to do it. But again, sometimes the underlying thing there is rebellion. I would say in that case, every time the underlying idea is rebellion against what Yehovah has said. And we've got an example in the scriptures of somebody who did this. You'll notice it says, observe it in the 7th month. In 1 Kings 12 verse 33, it says, he made offerings on the altar which he had made at Bethel. Okay, the altar is supposed to be at Jerusalem. On the 15th day of the 7th month, 15th day of the 8th month, in the month which he had devised in his own heart. Okay, and that is that's the root cause of rebellion. It's thinking that you know a better way to do it. And he performed a festival for the children of Israel and offered on the altar and burned incense. In Exodus 32, we of course have the incident with the golden calf. And Aaron saw and built an altar before it, and Aaron called out and said, tomorrow is a festival to Yehovah. And they rose early on the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. And as we saw in Torah portion Yitro, they knew that they weren't supposed to make gods for themselves of gold. They had just explicitly been told that very thing, but they decided, we're going to do this and we're going to make it about Yahovah, which of course is very much like what mainstream Christianity do with Easter and Christmas. They might acknowledge that they were originally pagan, but they'll kind of slap Yahovah's name on it and call it good, rather than doing what he said to do. And this incident with the golden calf didn't result in Yahovah saying, oh look, they're worshipping me just in a slightly different way. It ended up with 3,000 of them dead, because it's that underlying thought. We're going to do something that we know is opposite to what Yahovah has said, but we're going to presume that he'll be okay with it. It's deluding oneself. It is literally leaning on one's own understanding and not fearing Yahovah and trusting in Yahovah. In Deuteronomy 8, it says, cherish to do every command which I command. Cherish to do every command which I command you today, that you might live and shall increase and go in, and shall possess the land of which Yahovah swore to your fathers. And you shall remember that Yahovah your Elohim led you all the way these 40 years in the wilderness to humble you, prove you, to know what is in your heart, whether you cherish the commands or not. And he humbled you and let you suffer hunger and fed you with manna which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, to make you know that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of Yahovah. So we can see by this verse or this passage that Yahovah sometimes will put you in an uncomfortable situation to see which way you will go. Maybe Sukkot interferes with something. Maybe wearing tzitzit interferes with something in your life, or you perceive that it will. The best example that I can think is the tithe. People think, well, I'm not going to pay a tithe because I can't afford to pay a tithe, which simultaneously denies what Yahovah says when he says, test me in this, and also is rebellion in the form that we're talking about, where it's thinking, I know better than Yahovah in this situation. I can navigate my life better than Yahovah's instructions tell me to. I'm not going to trust in him. I'm not going to fear him. I'm going to fear not having enough money. And I'll just deny him the opportunity to work in that situation. We see here, he let them suffer hunger in the wilderness to see whether or not they would do his commands. Verse 4 says, your garments did not wear out on you, nor did your foot swell these 40 years. So Yahovah supernaturally intervened to prevent harm from coming to them. And we shouldn't presume that he will do the same thing, but we should expect that he can. And if he doesn't, then that is his will in that situation. Maybe he's testing us to see what we will do. Like Daniel's friends when they were to be cast into the furnace, and they basically said, if Yahovah wants to, he can save us from this. If not, then that's just the way that it is. That's how we should be when it comes to following the commands. Otherwise, we are failing the test. tested you to know whether or not you would follow me. And what was the result? The result was that we said, we know better than Yehovah, so our way is the way that we're going to go with. And Yehovah sees that. He sees the result of the test was rebellion, and that doesn't stand you in good stead with Yehovah. Verse 5 says, thus you shall know in your heart that as a man disciplines his son, so Yehovah your Elohim disciplines you. Okay, and we saw what the result was of if someone will not listen to the voice of their father when they are disciplined, if they still don't respond, they are brought before the judges and the elders to be stoned. Therefore you shall cherish the commands of Yehovah your Elohim, to walk in his ways and to fear him. So just like with the human father, we are to respond to the voice of Yehovah. If not, he will discipline us. If we still don't respond, then the result is the death penalty. And that's what we can expect. He will, in certain situations, make things uncomfortable for us so that he can see whether or not we value our comfort more or what he says more. And he can thereby see who is true, who is steady, steadfast, faithful, and who is actually a rebel, who is a hypocrite, who is acting the part but not actually fearing him and believing him. In Nehemiah 9:24 it says, so the sons went in and possessed the land, and you humbled before them the people of the land, the Canaanites, and gave them into their hands with their kings and the people of the land to do with them as they desired. And they captured walled cities and a rich land, and possessed houses filled with all good, cisterns already dug, vineyards and olive trees and fruit trees in plenty. So they ate and were satisfied and grew fat and delighted themselves in your great goodness. But they became disobedient and rebelled against you, and cast your Torah behind their backs. And they slew your prophets who would warn them to bring them back to yourself. And they worked great blasphemies. So here we see them receiving what is good from Yehovah and instantly forgetting that he is their Elohim. He is the reason that they had the things that they had. And they rebelled against him. They were disobedient. He disciplined them. He sent prophets to warn them. And they cast this Torah behind their backs. And they said, look at all the good that we have. Look how great things are going. We don't need Yehovah. And they became disobedient as a result of that. Which is kind of what people do. They go to Yehovah when they need him for something, or when they want to feel like they're going to make it into the kingdom, when they want some reassurance about that. They'll go to Yehovah. But once they've got whatever it is that makes them feel comfortable, then they forget him, because keeping his word wasn't ever a matter of believing it for them. Keeping his word served some kind of other purpose. It facilitated something for them. But it's not because of a belief in it, a faith in it. So it's not because they recognize it as that steady rock on which to found themselves. So they become disobedient. They rebel against Yahovah. We really need to see our behavior either as being faithful or being a rebel. They're the only two options. There's not a little third option that you can carve out wherein actually it's okay because it's you. That's just a delusion. We really need to not entertain delusions in our heads. Such things may well come from the deceiver, may well come from the father of lies. What we need to believe is that which is true, the word. In Numbers 27:12-14 it says, "And Yahovah said to Moshe, Go up into this Mount Avarim, and see the land which I have given to the children of Israel. And when you have seen it, you also shall be gathered to your people, as Aharon your brother was gathered, because you rebelled against my mouth in the wilderness of sin." So what did Moshe do? Moshe, when he said, when he instructed him on bringing water out of the rock, Moshe struck the rock instead. Again, it's rebellion. Again, it's thinking to do things in a way that Yahovah has not said. And as a result, Moshe did not go into the promised land with Joshua and Caleb. He missed out on that, which would be a pretty serious thing. And Yahovah says, it's because you rebelled against me. Moshe had been faithful to Yahovah all the way up to that point when he decided, I'm going to do what I want to do in this situation instead. And he suffered the consequences, as we will if we think to do that. So we need to only think of things as you're either faithful to Yahovah or you're a rebel. Even Moshe, who was faithful mostly to Yahovah, in that situation, he wasn't faithful, he was a rebel, and Yahovah called him on it, and he had to suffer the consequences of what he had done. In Numbers chapter 16, verse 1, it says, "And Korah, son of Yitzhar, son of Kehath, son of Levi, took both Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliav, and On, son of Peleth, sons of Reuven. And they rose up before Moshe with some of the children of Israel, 250 leaders of the congregation, called ones of the meeting, men of name." So these were all people who were recognized as leaders in the congregation, like Moshe was a leader in the congregation, and they came, and we know Korah rebelled. We see in verse 3. "They assembled against Moshe and against Aharon, and said to them, Enough of you, for all the congregation is holy or set apart, all of them, and Yahovah is in their midst. Why then do you lift yourselves above the assembly of Yahovah?" And this rebellion was again thinking that they had a better way of doing it. Yahovah had instituted things the way that he wanted. Korah didn't get to do the job that he wanted to. He wanted to burn incense before Yahovah. So he was jealous of Moshe and Aharon. And he comes and challenges them. And he uses his own thinking, his own reasoning to base that challenge on. And he's got loads of people with him who also come and rebel against the leadership that Yahovah has put in place. Yahovah knows what he's doing. When people come with such challenges, they are not rebelling against Moses and Aaron. They are rebelling against Yahovah himself. So Korah's reasoning was, all of the congregation's holy, not just you. Why are you set above the congregation? He leant on his own understanding. He didn't fear Yahovah, and he didn't listen to Yahovah's voice. Instead, he comes and he rebels. In Numbers 12 verse 2 it says, and they said, has Yahovah spoken only through Moshe? Has he not also spoken through us? And Yahovah heard it. So again, they come with a similar challenge. This is Miriam and Aaron in this case. Notice these are all people of note. They're all, in a human way of thinking, important people in the narrative. And yet they all get punished for their rebellion, for coming with their own way of thinking, leaning on that understanding rather than fearing Yahovah. We see with Korah that he is in fact put to death. Later in Numbers 16, and Moshe said to Korah, hear now, you sons of Levi. Is it little to you that the Elohim of Israel has separated you from the congregation of Israel to bring you near to himself to perform the service of the dwelling place of Yahovah and to stand before the congregation to serve him? They were, of course, Levites. And that he has brought you near to himself, you and all your brothers, the sons of Levi with you, yet you seek the priesthood as well. Therefore you and your company are set against Yahovah and Aharon. What is he that you grumble against him? So this is why they had come. They weren't happy with the way that Yahovah had things, and so they sought something different for themselves. They undoubtedly thought that they knew better than Moshe and Aaron. But by coming and challenging them and saying, we should be doing this role, it is not seen by Yahovah as rebellion against Moshe and Aharon exclusively. It is seen as rebellion against Yahovah himself. In Numbers 14, 6-11, it says, and Yehoshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Yefunah, who were among those who had spied out the land, tore their garments. And they spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, the land we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. If Yahovah is delighted in us, then he shall bring us into this land and give it to us, a land which is flowing with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against Yahovah, nor fear the people of the land, for they are our bread. Their defense is turned away from them, and Yahovah is with us. Do not fear them. But all the congregation said to stone them with stones. Then the esteem of Yahovah appeared in the tent of meeting before all the children of Israel. And Yahovah said to Moshe, how long shall I be scorned by these people, and how long shall I not be trusted by them with all the signs that I have done in their midst? So the people think that they will rebel. And Yahovah describes it as them not trusting him, and actually as scorning him. We need to again remember that we're either faithful or rebels. There's no in-between ground. Yahovah either sees you one way or he sees you another. You might be deluded and again want to carve out a third option, but there is no third option. You're either faithful or you're a rebel. And each of us, when we are faced with things in which we would think, I know how to deal with this situation, I'll do it differently to the word. I still love Yahovah, I'm still going to be obedient to him, but in this situation I'm going to think to do it differently. And Yahovah sees that as being scorned by someone who does that, or not being trusted by someone who does that. Do not rebel against Yahovah. It says that if he's delighted in us, then he'll bring us into the land. Only do not rebel. I think, as I've alluded to before, the problem is the people think that Yahovah is not delighted in them. So they are reticent to trust in Yahovah because they know that they've not acted trustworthily towards him. In Hosea 7, it says, "Woe to them, for they have strayed from me. Destruction to them, because they have transgressed against me, and I have ransomed them, yet they have spoken falsehoods against me, and did not cry out to me with their heart when they wailed on their beds. For grain and new wine they assemble themselves. They rebel against me." So, either you're faithful or you speak falsehoods against Yahovah, perhaps only in your heart. You've transgressed against him, and you've strayed from him. It's healthy to get a proper perspective on what you're actually doing when you're making the choice to do that. To stray from his word is to rebel against him, and you would think that you would stand before him and think that everything is going to be fine. It is a delusion which is perhaps entertained by Yahovah in order to weed out the people who are rebels. He will allow you to have that delusion. We're told in 2 Thessalonians 2, in fact, that he sends delusion to people who will not believe the truth. But instead they've delighted in unrighteousness. If that is your delight, then you will do contrary to the word, and you will be declared a rebel before Yahovah. I suppose it's important to recognize what you're actually doing, if that is going to be your course of action. If you are going to decide, I'm not going to do that bit of the word, or I'm going to stray from that bit of the word, then you are deciding, I'm going to be a rebel before Yahovah. I want that to be how he would see me and how he would describe me, rather than looking down on me in the light, because I'm founded on the rock, which is his word. In Numbers 16, later it says, "Therefore you and all your company are set against Yahovah." this is, of course, speaking of Korah, but we can take that as directed towards us directly. You are set against Yehovah. Having that perspective allows us to make a better informed choice when deciding not to do what is in his word. And you might well choose to not do what is in his word. Maybe you want your own comfort in that situation. If Yehovah allows you to suffer hunger to see whether you will keep his commandments or not, maybe you would choose to be fed and to be satisfied rather than the hunger. And that's a choice that you're going to have to make. But be informed that you are choosing to rebel against Yehovah. You are choosing what you have decided in your heart is a better way. You're leaning on your own understanding, not fearing Yehovah, not trusting in him. Numbers 16 verse 13 says, "Is it little that you've brought us up out of a land flowing with milk and honey to kill us in the wilderness, that you would also seize total rule over us? And you have not brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey, nor given us inheritance of fields and vineyards. Would you bore out the eyes of these men? We are not coming up." Okay, so this is Dathan and Abiram. Basically what they're saying is, do you not think that we can see what you're doing? And they're putting the onus on Moshe and Aharon. They're not acknowledging that it's actually Yehovah who leads. If people think that they're rebelling against men, then they haven't understood the word correctly. They are rebelling against Yehovah, not men. If he puts some kind of leadership in place and you rebel against that leadership, then you are rebelling against Yehovah himself. If somebody is in a position of leadership and they have been given that authority by Yehovah, it is not for us to come along and say, well, I don't agree with this aspect of what they're doing. We leave all things to Yehovah. That's if somebody has been put in place by Yehovah. If you can acknowledge that, then you shouldn't go against the authority that Yehovah has given that person, because you are going against Yehovah himself. People will sometimes recognize that authority when they agree with it, but then the minute that they disagree, they will stray from it, and they will come up with all sorts of excuses in their head as to why that is okay. So we have the rebels in the rebellion of Korah described in three different ways. They are princes of the assembly, or rulers of the assembly, Nasieh, called ones of appointment, and they are men of name, Anashe Shem, so sometimes men of renown, you might hear, but they are famed, they are known men. But of course, we know Yehovah shows no partiality when it comes to men. He is no respecter of persons. In every nation, he who fears him and works righteousness is accepted by him. So it really doesn't matter whether you are somebody who is well known, somebody who's got a bit of a name for themselves. Doesn't matter if you are a leader. If Yahovah judges you to be a rebel, then you're a rebel. He will not show partiality to those who men think are something. He will. It's the same division again. It's either you fear him, you work righteousness, or you are a rebel. So in every nation, he who fears him and works righteousness is accepted by him. That is true on in all points of this division. People who come to him and they say that they want to be his people, that they want him to be their Elohim, but then they will rebel against him, then it doesn't matter who that person is. They are not a part of Israel. They are a rebel. He sees them as a rebel. But those who fear him and those who work righteousness, they are accepted by him. That's the only determining factor. Nothing else is taken into account. So don't think in your heart, oh, it's me. I'll be okay with Yahovah because it's me. Yahovah shows no partiality. You either work righteousness, you're faithful to him, you fear him, or you don't, and you're a rebel. In 2 Timothy 4 verse 3 it says, "For there shall be a time when they shall not endure sound teaching, but according to their own desires they shall heap up themselves teachers, tickling the ear." This is people who think that they've got a better way of doing it in their heart, and so they will find leaders or teachers who will tell them what they want to hear. They're being just like the children of Israel were when they said, "Let us appoint a leader and let us turn back to Egypt." We will appoint the leader according to our own desires, what we think is right. So be aware, if you hear something that is challenging to you, that you don't seek to tune it out and to find something that is more pleasing to your hearing, because that will not get you anywhere with Yahovah. Might make you live life feeling more comfortable and kind of like you're in a good place with Yahovah. But you have to ask yourself what you actually ask after. Being in a good place with Yahovah or feeling like you're in a good place with Yahovah. Because you can have both of them if you are in a good place with Yahovah. But you can only have the feeling if you decide not to be faithful, not to fear him, and to rebel. No matter how scary the test is to walk out in faith, at some point you need to show your faith and not profess it, but actually show by your actions that you are a rebel. In Jude, there's only one chapter in Jude, so verses 8 to 11 say, "In the same way indeed, these dreamers defile the flesh and reject authority and speak evil of esteemed ones. All authority comes from Yahovah. But Michael, the chief messenger, or archangel, is contending with the devil, when he disputed about the body of Moshe, presumed not to bring against him a blasphemous accusation, but said, Yehovah rebuke you. So Michael, when he was contending with the devil, who hopefully we now recognize is not like God's enemy, in as much as God is not opposed by him in any meaningful way. But he's been given certain authority to sift the wheat. So Michael did not contend with the devil's authority, and instead he looked to Yehovah and he said, Yehovah rebuke you. And that's what we should do if we disagree with some kind of authority, be it in leadership in the body, or be it the people who Yehovah has put in charge around the world. We think that they're doing something that is not right. We shouldn't speak against their name. We should say, Yehovah rebuke you, and leave it with him. But these blaspheme that which they do not know, and that which they know naturally, like unreasoning beasts in these, they corrupt themselves. So blaspheming that which they did not know is speaking against the name of something that they do not know. We don't know the inner workings of how Yehovah is doing anything at all. And we shouldn't speak against things that are beyond us. We should just always submit those things into Yehovah's hands. Woe to them, because they've gone in the way of Cain and gave themselves to the delusion of Balaam for a reward, Balaam, and have perished in the rebellion of Korah. These are people who reject the authority that Yehovah has put in place because they think that they know better. They are rebels. Again, they've gone in the rebellion of Korah. So ask yourself, are you rebelling against Yehovah? Is there something that you know that you should be doing or shouldn't be doing, that you are or are not doing? Because if so, you can know for a fact today that Yehovah sees you as a rebel, and he will discipline you. And perhaps this video is that discipline. And if you still turn your ear from hearing the Torah, then when you stand before the judge, you will receive the death penalty. Yehovah willing, I'll see you next week.